This is Alcohol Freedom Finders. We often feel we should have things under control, especially when it comes to our relationship with alcohol. But what if it's not about being broken, but about shifting your perspective? Today, our guest Susan Stout opens up about reframing her relationship with alcohol and how it led to profound feelings of joy and confidence. Get ready to hear how small steps can lead to monumental change and how finding your true self is the ultimate freedom.
Welcome everybody. I'm super excited today because we have Susan Stout with us from Stout Connections Coaching, and actually she's a fellow This Naked Mind coach and was with Barry and I on our journey a couple of years ago. So wonderful to have you with us today.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here with you guys. This is such an honor.
Yeah, it's great to see you, Susan. So why don't you take us back and let us know what your journey's been with alcohol and how you came to find alcohol freedom.
Sure. Well, I've been trying to improve myself for most of my life. And so I've known for a long time that I was drinking more than I wanted to. I didn't like the way it made me feel. And I was quite surprised when, despite my best efforts, I had a difficult time stopping. I tried a lot of things. And so it kind of came to a head when my mom started her journey with cognitive decline, which morphed into dementia and Alzheimer's. And I was acutely aware that A, I didn't want that same journey, and B, that my health was my own responsibility. And so it kind of kickstarted me to say, it's time to get serious here with looking after my health. So that was kind of the catalyst of it all.
I love that. And I really resonate with that myself, because that whole idea of, I too have spent most of my life trying to improve myself. I really strive to be the best version I could of myself. And I knew somewhere lurking in the back of me that alcohol wasn't serving me, but I just thought I needed to get better at it, better at managing it. And also, like you, I tried so many different things. I felt like I was a failure because it was one thing I couldn't get good at. So I really totally understand that. So how did you overcome that struggle?
Well, first I'll just say a little bit about the struggle is that, I wasn't adverse to asking for help for a lot of things. And I did that I used to smoke cigarettes. And so I joined a couple programs, because I quit twice, to overcome that. And I didn't feel any shame. In fact, I was really proud of myself for quitting, but for asking for help for quitting. But when it came to drinking alcohol, there was so much shame, and I was afraid to ask for help because I was really worried about having another label, about being called an alcoholic and what that would mean, and if I was going to have to define myself that way for the rest of my life because I asked for help. So that really held me back, to be honest with you. I didn't want that stigma. So, that slowed me down for a while. And then I found, through some serendipitous happenings, found the path and from This Naked Mind and joined that. And through that I found ways to change my beliefs and overcome this habit that was no longer serving me.
Brilliant. And so what was the difference then? What was different about the approach in the path than other ways you'd looked at it before?
Well, the big one was to put down the shame and the guilt and the blame. And that was probably one of the hardest things for me, was to show myself some self-compassion, because, I'm big on being responsible for myself. So for me to come around to the belief that it wasn't my fault was really a big struggle. Like, of course it's my fault. I'm the one who's ingesting the liquid. But after lots of work, and the work in the program, I came to see that it's an addictive substance, and my body and my brain are reacting in ways that the substance was intended for me to react, and that is to drink more. And so after I learned a lot of that science as well, then I learned that it wasn't my fault. Yes, it's my responsibility. And now I can move forward on that with that mind frame.
Yeah, I hear you. I was talking about this with Barry yesterday about, for those of us that have given alcohol lots of jobs to do in our lives, it's almost like, you know, when you blow up a birthday balloon, it starts off as nice little shape, and then you blow it up really big for the party, and then you let it out, you want to reuse it again, or you didn't blow it up quite right. It never goes back to that nice little shape ever again. And I feel for those of us that have given alcohol lots and lots and lots of jobs to do, that balloon never goes back to its original shape. So each time we try and stop drinking and then go back and just have one, it's like the balloon's only got a tiny bit of air in it. It needs way more air in it to then inflate in the same way. That's how I have seen, so that's the analogy I use for alcohol for me. And I don't believe it's the same for everybody. I think that some people who never blew up their balloon too big in the first place still have a nice elastic balloon. Let's just explore that a little bit further. What do you feel now about your relationship with alcohol going forward?
I have no desire to drink. And so it's such a non-relationship. It doesn't even cross my mind. You know, once in a blue moon, I'll do something that I haven't done before, maybe since I quit drinking, or it's not like so familiar, and I'll be like, oh, I usually have a beer with this, or a glass of wine would go nice. And I'm like, oh, isn't that a funny thought that happened to pop in there? It's surprising more than anything. I do find that I don't care what other people do, but I do find that my tolerance for hanging around people who are drinking for a long period of time is a lot more limited. So yeah, you know, it's okay for the first few hours, and then I've probably had enough. So, and that is just like gratitude to be able to say, okay, see you later. I don't feel the need to stay here anymore. And I've gotten what I could get, you know, from our interaction. I hope I've given you some, and let's meet up again. So yeah, it's just a lot of gratitude.
Great. And you were talking about smoking, and I when I was in my 20s, I did 5 winters living in a ski resort, and back in those days, the chairlifts were very slow, and there was plenty of time to have a cigarette. And so I used to nearly always have a cigarette on the chairlift. And so now when I go back skiing, there's certain places, certain chairlifts that you think, you know, and I don't think about smoking. I really don't want, you know, I hate smoking now. Like, oh God, no, nothing about it. But you do have those situations that if it's something that you associate it with, and you haven't been through that without it enough times, then, you know, you do get that trigger. And it's the same with drinking. And so it's kind of the frustrating part. Once you sort of get to the point where you think, actually, no, alcohol's not serving me anymore, and, you know, I don't need to do it every day. And so you get to a situation where maybe you're not drinking at home anymore, and that feels fine. But then you can get surprised by a birthday party or a wedding or a situation, or just a way you feel, and you it's been your go-to in those situations. And yeah, all those little situations need to be unwound and rewired. Oh yeah, what do I do in this situation? Is there a different way to approach this? And would there be another way to enjoy this situation?
If you're looking to take back control of your drinking, why don't you join our Alcohol Freedom Finders 30-day group program? It's a great place to start because we approach it as an experiment rather than a challenge. Whereas, as well as getting a great detox, you learn the science and the psychology about why you're drunk in the first place. So whether you want to stop altogether or just become a more mindful and moderate drinker, why don't you give it a crack? Use the link in the show notes to sign up to our next Alcohol Freedom Finders 30-day program, and you won't regret it, because no one ever woke up in the morning and said, I wish I'd had more to drink last night, did they? No.
In your journey through the path, were there times that you struggled? Did you just sign up and immediately see the light and find it easy, or what was the struggle through that period of being on the path?
Yeah. I think I was getting ready before I joined the path. I think quitting drinking was the last thing I needed to do, if that makes any sense. My brain was preparing prior because I had some good practice at it. So I was prepared. So the whole journey through the path, especially in retrospect, it feels like it was quite seamless. I took some time. I did the pause where I stopped trying to stop, and then just learning how to rewire my brain was so beneficial, especially the rewiring the parts about the shame, as I mentioned before. Just admitting that I was over drinking to myself was such a big deal. And I think that, we all have our own backstories, but my father drank and was labeled an alcoholic. So I had this background story that I shouldn't be like him. And my stepfather didn't speak highly of alcoholics. So it was doubly reinforced that I shouldn't be. So again, just getting out of my own way about what that word means, I think was really instrumental in my progress forward. And then I also opened my mind up to think about the fact that not everyone thinks about the word the same way I do. Some people think of the word alcoholic as, oh, though there's some people who've gone through some things, who have a lot more life experience, who know some more things than I do. And so even just reframing my idea about that word really helped propel me forward as well.
Yeah, I really hear you on this label and this word alcoholic, because when we give up smoking, or when we're a smoker, no one calls us a smokeaholic. So alcoholic does just what image do you have in your mind as soon as you say alcoholic? I can't undo the image of the park bench and the brown paper bag and the homeless person. It's just so there. And if you've got formative figures reinforcing seriously negative beliefs around that label, then it's going to make it even bigger and bigger. So combine that with the shame of being someone who wants to improve herself. There's just this massive, what we call cognitive dissonance, which is one part of you telling you, I need to be this amazing person that's improving, and on the other hand going, maybe I'm this terrible thing, this alcoholic, and the easiest way to deal with it to start with is to ignore it. So it's no surprise that the stats say that the average person stopping alcohol tries 8 to 10 times before they're successful. So what I wanted to ask you about from what you just said was, you said that you did the pause. So just people won't know what the pause is. So maybe just speak to that and tell us what about the pause was useful for you in terms of what we've been talking about.
Oh, yeah. Well, the pause is when you stop trying to stop. And so instead of trying to willpower and white knuckle my way through, or instead of trying to put parameters around myself and then beating myself up for not meeting those parameters, I just stopped. I just said, okay, let's just carry on the way I'm carrying on, but instead be kind and observe. Oh, yeah. So I find I want to drink after work. Oh, what's that all about? Oh, I think it's going to give me some relief from my stress, or I think it's going to help me socialize, or I think it's going to help me do these things. And so there was time just to observe why I was drinking, and then time to observe how it was making me feel. And that's what I really was seeing, that I actually don't even like this stuff. Like, it tastes kind of terrible. And after the first one, I can never get that buzz that I'm chasing, and it never feels good. And I really don't like it. And that's what I discovered, is I really don't like this whole circus. So then it was way easier to stop it.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's sort of what we sort of talk about, the sort of just get curious and be curious about, try and look at it sideways and think, you know, is it giving me what I expected, what the marketing was telling me, what society, you know, does it all make sense? Is it perhaps an illusion? Can you look at it slightly differently, and without the pressure of not doing it? You allow it to happen. You try and take the shame away, which I think, you know, for you and for me, you know, was a big deal, because you sort of feel like, you know, I should be in control and I should be able to do it, and all these other people are, oh, I've got it under control, and they're being responsible, and we're supposed to be responsible. And I think once you sort of start to see alcohol as the source of the problem and not you, and you know, it's an addictive thing, like a cigarette, like cocaine, like, you know, any other kind of addictive behavior or substance, and then you just allow it to sort of, you know, once you sort of understand what it is and what it's actually doing to you and what it's actually giving you, it's easier to see it for what it is, and it takes the shine off it, and it makes it easier to then, you know. So what comes after the pause? I mean, how long did you go through this for? What comes next?
Yeah, and then you know, set a goal to try a set period of time. I think it was my birthday, and I decided that I wanted to give it a month to see if I could go. And so I did. And I go, yeah, well, maybe I'll just go a little bit longer. And then I just kept lengthening and lengthening. And then before you know it, I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to drink again. But there was the resistance in me saying, I don't want to say I'm never drinking again. That didn't feel good. And so I didn't. I just said, I'm not drinking right now, and I don't need it, and it doesn't serve me, and I feel better because of it. Now I don't think I still say I'm never drinking again. I just say that I'm not right now, and that works for me. So I guess we all do it a little bit differently. You know, I would never give up this feeling of being alive and hopeful and joyful for the substitute of something that I thought was helping me that wasn't. Yeah. And I guess one more thing that I really learned through the process of the whole journey was that I'm actually not broken. I'm not this broken thing that I thought I was. I'm just this whole beautiful human being that was trying to do the best I could, but struggling. And now I can see that, and now I can have more grace and compassion for myself for the way I did behave, and that's okay because I did the best I could. So
you've just answered the question I was going to ask you, which was, what's the most surprising thing about being an alcohol freedom finder? And that's so true, isn't it? That ultimately we think it's about alcohol, but it's actually not about alcohol at all. It's about coming back to a place of self-compassion. And one of our coaches always says, because human, you know, that's why we make mistakes, because we're human. And to have that compassion is just, it's such a relief, isn't it? It's such a relief. So what would you say to somebody else who has maybe not yet done the pause, but has tried a few times? What would you say to somebody else that was trying to reframe their relationship with alcohol? What advice would you give them?
I would say, don't be afraid to reach out for help, however that looks for you, because it can be a difficult journey. And there's such power in getting help. You still have to do work and be willing and be open. The faster you can get help, the better you'll feel. And that's what I would have told myself too, is don't let this, preconceived idea that you have hold you back. Because just to swing it back a little bit to my father, who overdrank and was called an alcoholic, I know that he was a loving and beautiful human being, and he loved us. So I don't define him by that. And if he would have had the opportunity to get help, imagine what that would have been for him. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I mean, I think, and that it comes a lot back to the shame, and also to the way that the society sets us up to feel as if it's something that we should be able to do, and the drink responsibly again, and so we're we look at other people and think, oh, they've got it all under control, and why haven't we? And if we're struggling, then we need to keep it quiet, and like you say, white knuckle it, and I think it's like you said, it's not our fault. It's an addictive substance, and if you use it in enough of those scenarios, and it becomes a sort of go-to crutch or treat or whatever it means to you, then it's going to worm its way in. And some people, it worms its way in faster than others, but yeah, like you said, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility, and that doesn't mean you have to do it all on your own. It just means you just put your hand up and say, I'm struggling here, or find a book, find a group, find a podcast, for instance, and find a community that you resonate with, it really does help. Just saying it out loud to yourself, or just saying it in the mirror, just actually, I need to do something about this. It can feel like a bit of a weight off your shoulders. You can feel like, okay, I've said it now. Then what's the next step? And just try and think of what step could I do that would take me in the direction I want to go in, rather than sort of feeling crippled by the fear of what might people think, or shoulding yourself into sort of like, I should be able to do it. But
yeah,
okay,
I love that. I love that, Barry. And I think that also makes me think how sometimes we think when we're comparing ourselves to the outside people, that the outer facing version of people, we get to our insides and we think, oh gosh, here I am, I'm a wreck, and look at them, they look so, and we just never know what other people are going through. And we all have coping mechanisms, whether it's alcohol or sugar or scrolling or whatever, and it's just not necessary to have the shame about it. And it's just so liberating to get your confidence back once you can tackle that. So yeah, I love that. The comparison to others is just not helpful.
And also not just comparison to others, but comparison. I was thinking from what you were saying earlier about our relation, thinking about your dad, what you said about him being this loving, kind human. I pride myself on being a well-being therapist that's really there for people, and I've always been an empath. My mother was an empath. It really is a very strong feature in my personality. And so when I was out a night out 6 years ago, and somebody said to me, I'm not going to go out with you again if you're drinking, your personality changes and you're not a very nice person. It's so horrifying, because I didn't think that this was about personality change. I didn't think that this was about, actually, I'm not a vulnerable, authentic version of myself. I'm a different version of myself. I never even factored in that part of alcohol when we were growing up and drinking. I never thought at all for a second that it would change my personality, and that I would be somebody that, instead of being seen as a loving and kind and wonderful mother, from being someone that my daughter said when she was about 10, oh, Mummy, promise you won't drink when I grow up and get married. Yeah. So I was just wondering what you would say, new adventures, experiences, feelings in yourself that you have now that you are not your father, and we can all see your loving, kind, generous self. How does that come up for you?
I think it's just finding my authenticity, finding what does make me tick and what is important to me, and having the confidence to explore it further. So, yeah, and have the confidence to not doubt myself and to blame everything that happens on what my prior behavior was. Now I can, if something happens, I can look at that independently. Oh, this happened. And I can look at that instead of always having this thing that's wrong with me. And so, yeah, the confidence was the biggest surprise, I think, really. Yeah.
And maybe it's a good time to ask the question we ask everybody, that the 3 words that best describe your journey to what finding freedom from alcohol means to you.
I think hope is big in there, that the future is hopeful instead of this heavy, how can I manage? Now it's, well, what is out there? And so that's a big one. And right beside that is joy, because now I didn't realize that my set point for joy had been just knocked down so low. Because as I was numbing out and coping and doing all the things, I didn't realize that alcohol was also stealing my everyday joy. I went hiking with my family recently, and I was flooded with joy from being in the sunshine and being with them. And I'm like, oh, like, wow. I just, so joy is huge and it's abundant. And the last thing is connection, because that is really the magic of life, is finding the connections to myself and to other people. And so, yeah, I think those are my 3 words.
I couldn't agree more. And the ability to show up for yourself and show up for others. And I'm sure it just helps your coaching business go from strength to strength. So if people are looking to find out more about your coaching or how you might be able to help them, what should they do, Susan?
I'm on social media, on Facebook and Instagram. My business is Stout Connections Coaching, and my website is there as well, .com. And yeah, just look me up and let's connect. And you don't have to do this alone. So yeah, I'd love to connect with you.
That's brilliant, Susan. Yeah, I mean, I love that. Those 3 words are brilliant. You know, that joy and connection. I really particularly resonate with that idea that you know, it was my biggest surprise was, you know, I thought that alcohol was the only part of my day that was giving me joy, but it turns out, you know, it gave it back a little bit at the end of the day. But actually, when you take it away, you know, you're like you said, your set point or your baseline rises, and you can actually enjoy the rest of the day. And it's not like get through the day so you can have a drink at the end of it. It's actually, you can enjoy the whole day, and yeah, and getting back into that connection as well is, you know, that you know, it's Johann Hari talks about the connection being the opposite of addiction, and it really is, you know, an amazing thing.
And one last thing, I just realized it's like when you start to have that connection, it's like your little balloon, rather than being blown up with the air, it gets blown up with helium. It's this kind of uplifting feeling, right? So yeah, we get helium balloons instead.
Yes.
Yeah, or laughing
Yeah,
gas or something.
exactly.
Absolutely.
We get laughing gas in our balloons instead, literally. I love that so much. Thanks so much, Susan.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. It's been lovely being with you.